They're firing them to go into a shelter. So they don't want to move into shelters in many cases. But we're making it less convenient to be in our properties, and they are, some of them, getting up, but they're also moving into Kakako and Lake Wilson and under the viaducts and around Keahi Lagoon. And there's one common denominator in all those places that I described, and what do you think that is? It's state property, not city. We can't enforce on state property unless the state invites us to do so, because we don't have a right to go on other people's property, nor do we have a right to go on your property unless you invite us in to enforce trespass. And we are telling the state that they need to do some of what we're needing to do, and then we need to provide housing also. So compassionate disruption, there's a disruption part that I talked about. When I became mayor, we started enforcing these laws. In the early days, in 2013-14, 8 to 14 tons of opala every week collected from sidewalks and parks. 8 to 14 tons every single week. And we come back the next week and we remove another 8 to 14 tons. This is stuff taken out of dumpsters, taken out of garbage cans, taken from other areas, things that were stolen, mattresses, couches, and put in places where you walk, where you park, where you want to lay in the grass. And we remove it, and it come back the next day. Or the next week. We now in this, we're still doing this, and now we've knocked it down to about 3 to 4 tons a week. So a lot less, which is good news for two reasons. One, I think it means that where we're enforcing, there's fewer people. And two, because we enforce now every day that there's less stuff. The amount of stuff that homeless folks have has become less. And I think that's a good thing. They're a little bit more mobile, and hopefully they're going to be moving more into shelters. We have a roving patrol now that we put in place where every week we do these stored property ordinance sidewalk nuisance laws at night when our parks are closed. Because we found that when we enforce during the day, they go into the park. And when the park is closed, they come out to the street. Now the park is closed, we tell them you can't be on the sidewalk. And then during the day, we go back with a roving patrol to the same places saying, don't come back here. Don't come back here, because we're going to take your things. And we do that every day, and the habit changes, and they move on. Some into shelter and some to other places. But the second component is the compassionate part, and that's housing. So as mayor, we adopted the housing first model. It's not something new. It's something that's happening around this country, pushed by the federal government. And what it means is that we give you a house first, and then you get better. Because under the old program, a homeless person could not get a permanent supportive housing unit until they were clean and sober. So they have to be off drugs and alcohol, and they have to be mentally stable. Well, how do you do that when you're living on the street? Pretty hard, right? You're on the street, I'm moving you around all the time. You don't have time to deal with your drug addiction, alcohol addiction, or your mental issues.